Welcome to February and the month of Togetherness. All of this month I'm going to be focusing on games that mean something special to both myself and a member of my family or my family in general that we all play together. So for this first week, let's discover one of Myth's and my favorite games, Dragon's Crown. In early August of 2013, a Sony exclusive title was released onto the PS3 and the infamous PS Vita, to the great dismay of people like myself who at the time could only play certain PC games for the most part, and some old Nintendo games. It, to this day, is still only released on those two systems, and in case you can't guess which version the very broke self you're watching played it on, I played PS3. This game is a side-scrolling beat-em-up similar to when I discovered Castle Crashers. Also like Castle Crashers, I can say right now it can be a bit boring to play alone sometimes. Unlike Los Casas Crashas, however, this game is still at least somewhat balanced when playing on your own. If you attempt to enter a level with less than 4 members in your party, the party will be filled with various adventurers that you picked up throughout the dungeons. There'll be piles of bones laying inside the levels, and if you pick them up, they can be resurrected at the temple in the main game hub. Outside of that, however, the game is really nothing like the apathetic Bear Warriors, so let's move past that analogy. Dragon's Crown takes place in the Kingdom of Hydeland, whose king has been missing for quite some time after he went looking for the Dragon's Crown, a magical artifact that is said to allow the wearer to control dragons. You spend most of your time in different parts of the kingdom, fighting off whatever evils you have been sent there to confront, from vampires to giant beetles. In between missions, you return to the main area to shop and prepare for the next excursion. First is the tavern, where your tiny fairy companion is eternally smashed in a frothy drink. Here you can save the game, check on your assistant adventurers, and let in more players. Next is the church, where you can pray for long-lasting bonuses, resurrect dead adventurers you found in dungeons mentioned earlier, and bury them. The magic item shop lets you fix your equipment, buy and sell items, and displays the weirdest part of this game's art style. See, ordinarily this game has a beautiful art style that mixes cartoonish motions with highly detailed backgrounds, where every design element might end up being important. That flag on the ghost ship, that's not just a background element, it's part of a quest. Statues can be important to the game in the future, and you can always keep an eye out for runes carved into the walls because their magic can help you throughout the game. And they put just as much detail into the characters, especially in some cases. This game has a thing for really big women. The Amazon, the sorceress, this random mermaid, the random lady with a bag on her head, and the shopkeeper. Atlas, the designer of this game, put just as much design detail into the largeness and its implications as any other part of their environments.
Which one do you want?
I'm not sure if this deserves praise for the continued focus on details, or to be shamed for taking advantage of largeness to sell video games. Continuing through the hub area, there's the Mage Tower where the wizard Lucane lives, who's really not doing anything, the Adventurers Guild where you arbitrarily turn in quests and level up, then comes the castle where most of the storyline progresses, and ending with the stables and the gate. They allow you to travel the map locations in order to continue the game. So, what's involved in the game's story? Let's dive right in. The game begins with you as a useless noob adventurer who's just joined the guild. You clear out some harpies before being called to the castle and asked by the magistrate to reclaim a scepter that determines who is allowed to rule the kingdom. I really don't think that's quite how royal succession works, but hey, they're paying for their ruling stick to be recovered, so off we go. Upon our return, the Duke attempts to force us to hand it over, but the magistrate steps in and saves us. Instead, we are sent off to find out what happened to the wizard Lucane. He went into one of the dungeons and died, so with the help of a magical talking mouse, we retrieve his bones and bring him back to life. Our time to relax after that is short-lived as the Duke calls us back to the castle and sends us on a suicide mission, scouting behind the front lines of the battle with the orcs. We somehow survive, and we get a magical sword from Asia's past. Huzzah! Which is then immediately taken away by the Duke for himself.
Yoink!
Oh. He explains he's actually the next heir to the throne, and that the minister is controlling the princess. Okay, I know I questioned why a magical ruling stick decides who holds succession, but why is a duke next in line instead of a princess for a throne? Besides, at this moment, the ruling stick that was so incredibly important is in her hands. Ours is not the place to wonder, as we are sent out on a few more missions for the town at large before suddenly being thrown in jail for a crime we did not commit. Apparently, this is normal if you hold royal secrets, and we are doomed for the rest of our life. A few days later, which takes place instantaneously in the cutscene without a moment's pause, we are let back out. The minister was the one that threw us in there because he felt we might be loyal to the Duke. You remember, the guy that stole our awesome sword?
Oh.
Yeah, he can go get killed, and I really won't mind. You're clearly a very good judge of character, Mr. Throbbing Proboscis. The princess has returned to her real self without his mind control over her, and the kingdom can properly rule itself. Except for one little thing. The minister took the royal orb when he ran away, and it also proves who is allowed to rule the kingdom.
So, not only did you need to have the royal stick to rule, but you also had to firmly clasp the royal ball? Did you people need this phallic imagery in here alongside all of the gigantic breasts? Except to accentuate that apparently if you possess a pair of those of any size, you're not fit to rule. Because why is the princess not next in line to rule when she's clearly the direct descendant of the king and the duke is some off-branch?
On top of this, they still had the ball when they got their stick taken. They only had one artifact. No one had the other artifact, so why did we have to go get the stick? Especially now they say that the ball is far more powerful and important than the stick is, and it could fall into the hands of a neighboring country and instigate a civil war. Okay, I understand why it's important to go retrieve it this time, but you're just emphasizing why it wasn't important when we retrieved your ruling stick to begin with. Well, the minister in his greed and haste used a pirate route, knowing the royal army wouldn't chase after him for fear of death at the pirates' hands. What he failed to consider was that there was no reason the pirates would ever let him through, particularly when he had laden down his ship with stolen treasure and the extra ruling ball. Sure enough, they were nice enough to murder him for the kingdom, so that not only would the ball fall into the other country's hands, but the Duke could now simply send in a group of particular adventurers to once again retrieve the stolen ruling object. We succeed with a bit of help from a genie that the pirates were foolish enough to whip out around us, and the Duke is proclaimed king by right of his stick and ball. Immediately, it sets up just how doomed the country is, with the kingdom that was set up to retrieve the ball now understandably pissed that its machinations fell through. On the other end of the country, the war with the orcs still rages, and now a cult of evil demon worshippers have allied with our enemies to see the kingdom of Hydeland fall. What we need now is the Dragon's Crown. Between its legendary power to control dragons and its status symbol that tops both the other ruling objects, the presence of such a thing on the Duke's head would make all of our enemies back off. So unsurprisingly, we're tasked with retrieving it. In our attempts to find the crown, following several dead ends, we discover that a portal to another realm where the goddesses long ago banished the evil dragon to sleep forever has opened, and the dragon has been awakened. We also discover that the dragon's crown is both in that land we cannot reach, and that its power to control dragons was never real. Just a myth to make people want it and think the king that used to wear it was a really awesome dude. We don't manage to get this information to the Duke in time, however, before he vanishes from the court. He made a deal with the demon worshippers to gain the crown. They then betrayed him and sacrificed him in a ritual to resurrect the ancient dragon.
Huzzah!
You still don't get your awesome sword back.
Oh.
And now the dragon's coming after this world, and it's only a matter of time until everything that exists is destroyed in his flames.
Oh.
And you're going to have to grind random dungeons until you're 15 levels higher than you currently are. That's right, you now need to revisit every area, taking a new, much more difficult path to defeat a super boss and retrieve the 9 talismans that will weaken the Eternal Dragon. You must fight Death itself, an archdemon, and even a killer bunny. Don't laugh, he actually turned out to be the hardest of the fights, since there was not as many moves that could deal consistent damage to something that small. With all 9 amulets in hand, you can now open the portal to the other realm and destroy the ancient... Or you can grind for another level and then go back and destroy another level, and we can destroy... Please? Hey, anybody interested in helping here? Genie, you give us a wish, right? Come help us. The Liu Kang, end of the world coming. I'm sure it'd be important to help us with a dragon. Come on, guys. Fine, more grinding, and now we can... The world is finally saved, and it's all thanks to us. My elf returns to the forest and is a hero among her people, and who knows what happened to Myth Sorcerer? She didn't actually exist any more than the NPC characters we brought with us to fight. Thus, the princess finally becomes queen, like she should have from the start, and we never tell anyone the crown isn't magic so our enemies wet themselves and run away.
So, joking aside, we were actually ready to take on the final boss.
for quite a while before we were able to. But while the game gives you NPC players to round out your team, there's a limit to how useful they can be. While their AI is well programmed for using combos and dealing damage, they really don't understand anything else. Is there a trap between them and where they think they should go? Their AI can't see it. Does a boss summon cocoons that need to be destroyed or else it'll spawn a second boss? They don't see them and they keep hitting the boss. Is an otherwise easy boss winding up his super slow instant death attack? They will continue to stand in front of him trying to beat him up. Normally this isn't too much of a problem. Every character is allowed 1 respawn, 2 if you prayed at the temple for a specific blessing. If, after those 2 respawns, they still die, when, you simply move your cursor over their portrait and click. Some money is spent and they will stand back up with 2 more respawns. But in this final fight, those respawns are final. There is no goddess to help save you in this realm. This alone would make their stupidity difficult to work around, but the Ancient Dragon has some of the most contextual interactions in the game. When he moves off screen and throws a fireball, you need to get behind the stone pillars or get one-shot. The same goes when he swoops back into the fight, only with much less damage. His missiles that he shoots at the cover need to be hit and shot back at him, or you'll lose your cover. His magical orbs that prevent using parts of the battlefield need to be hit and destroyed. His fire breath is easy to dodge as long as you understand dodging. But NPCs understand none of this, so they will attempt to block each of said attacks with their face instead. So obviously, this game is best when played with multiple live players, right? It is at its best that way, but this game is meant for couch play to be at its best. As you all insult the Duke together, work at cooking over the campfire, and generally have the great time that couch multiplayer has always suggested. But this game hasn't been set up for couch gaming in any way, shape, or form. It allows you to do it, but in an incredibly frustrating way. The game has been set up so that only player 1 can actually interact with several gameplay elements or buy certain necessary items. A huge part of the game during the endgame is the ability to chain together dungeons. For each level that you enter without going back to the hub world, your rewards are constantly increased. However, even going back into levels far under your level, you can only go through 3 or 4 rounds before your equipment breaks. So the game allows you to buy multiple bags that you can change out to bring in multiple sets of equipment and keep questing longer. But only player 1 can buy bags. Only player 1 can use the magical runes in levels. Only player 1 is considered to have completed the game. And you could just swap which character as player 1 to defeat the Ancient Dragon again, right? Nope. That character will have to play through the entire game from the beginning despite still being on level for that final fight. Even when the second player is allowed to interact, it has to be done individually. When repairing items, each player must physically walk into the item shop, repair their items, and then leave, one at a time. This also holds true of turning in quests and upgrading abilities in the guild. This extra time drags out over a playthrough and begins to be grating. Another issue that grates after a while is the forced randomization of levels. Once the Duke vanishes, you'll lose the ability to travel directly to the level you need to continue the game, unless you want to pay quite a bit for the privilege. They attempt to compensate for this with all new quests placed throughout all of the levels. This might work, but you can only take on 5 quests at a time. Not all of these quests will be completable at one time or have a location, so you can assume that only 3 of those quests are going to be place specific at any one time. Let's assume that you go into your randomized questing. You have a 33% chance of getting to a level that you need. So, let's say you go to that place somehow and continue your quest. Now you have a 25% chance. This percentage is actually lowered because of some of the strange quirks in the game as well. See, while there are 9 levels in the game, Myth and I went through over and over and over, and we kept seeing the same 4 or 5 levels. Very rarely we would run into a different level, but there were some of the levels that we had to pay to access because the randomizer simply didn't feel we ever needed to go there. While these annoyances are just that, highly annoying, the game remains a lot of fun. Every level and boss has something unique about it to set it apart from every other. The cooking minigame between some chain dungeons is actually one of the most enjoyable parts of the game and is weirdly intense as you try to cook for 4 people with just 2 of you sitting in front of the TV. So, while this game is hardly optimized for couch play, you can still have a great time playing either with friends or on your own. Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the month of Togetherness so far. Next week is a game that I actually play with my father and I, so hopefully you'll all enjoy that. And remember, life is always another game waiting to be discovered.